house needs haunting, just call Rentaghost. We've got spooks and ghouls and freaks and fools at Rentaghost. Hear the Phantom of the Opera sing a haunting melody. Remember, what you see is not a mystery, but Rentaghost.
Hello and welcome to SMPD, the podcast where we look back at the shows that shape our childhood. I am Chris Bolton. With me, as always, my partner in podcasting, Mr. Mark Williams.
Hello.
And it's October, guys. Finally, like 2020 is nearly over. But more importantly, you know we love Halloween here on the network. So it is that time of year again. It's spoopy season. We, just like last year and just like the year before, we've got some treats lined up for you this month. Not too many tricks. We're going to kick it off tonight, though. We got a bit of a ghostly theme going on this year. We've done monsters, we've done witches. So this year we figured, let's go with ghosts. So we're kicking off with a look back at Rentaghost.
Yeah, now this one, you mentioned it, when we were planning a while back now. You brought this one up, and it was on the list, and I remembered it as being slightly different, and I'll tell you the reason why in a second. But yeah, it's the one thing that struck me with this straight away is that it is fucking nuts.
It's fucking batshit crazy, isn't it?
It is. I mean, I remember bits of it, and I remember certain characters. So when I was watching it back the last day or so, I recognized people, and I could work out what was going on pretty easily and pretty quickly because I had enough with it. But the style seemed very different, and I think I must have watched originally, like when I was a kid, because I mean this finished airing its first run when I was like just about toddling, I think. I mean it's that old, but I must have seen later episodes, because when I watched back the first 3 or 4 today, I didn't recognize it as a show. It was very different. The tone was very different. You had a lot less characters in it, and even the opening was different, because in the later ones you had the song over part of a scene rather than its own credits, rather than its own video bit. So I mean, I was a bit taken aback when I saw this. Hang on, this isn't what I remember. But as I've gone through it and I've done a bit of reading and a bit of background, I worked out what's gone on. But I was a bit surprised by this because it wasn't what I was expecting.
Now, it's interesting you should say that, because I've rewatched pretty much all later episodes, purely because that's what I remember for the same reason. Even again, there's that slight age difference between us, so perhaps I remember Rentaghost a little bit better than you first time out, but even I was too young for it when it first aired. Like, this predates us. Yeah. Like, we were sperm when this started. Yeah. So, like, I remember more of the later episodes, and I remember them in reruns. So this occupies kind of a weird headspace for me, in that it's nostalgic in as much as I can remember the reruns. I can remember it being on, but I was still very young even watching the reruns. And the thing is with this, because it's a live action show and because it's a sitcom and because it's so tonally odd, as you were saying, like I remember as a very young kid just kind of, I don't know, I had a weird relationship. I found it slightly creepy in some ways. Not in it. I mean, it's not scary. Don't hang yourself up on that just because there's ghosts in it. Like, fucking no way. No, it doesn't even attempt to be scary. But yeah, there's this odd thing. Like, I always found Dobbin quite scary, and I found the ghost that comes down the front at the front credits. There's a ghost holding the Rentaghost sign that used to freak me out a little bit. So this occupies kind of a weird space. I mean, having said all of that, I did always watch it when it was on. I think I probably enjoyed it, just never really quite understood what it was. And there are other shows kind of that time that predate me that were watching reruns. You know, there's things like The Clangers and Bagpuss, for instance. Like Bagpuss lives in my soul. Like that show just has a part of me forever. Like, that, you want to talk nostalgia. Like, I know that's on the list and we've not got around to it yet, so no spoilers for when we get to that. But I love that show like deep in my soul. Like, whereas I don't get that with this so much. So it was interesting for me to go back and watch it. But I did, only watch those later episodes. As you alluded to there, I'm aware that there was a massive tonal shift after about 2 or 3 seasons, apparently. I still haven't watched any of those early seasons. I did try and find some, but couldn't track them down. So if you found some of those earlier episodes, ping me a link over because I would like to see some of them.
Yeah, the quality's pretty horrendous on the ones I found.
In terms of the recording quality, or the show is
like the actual video quality.
Oh right, okay. But yeah, I don't know what those early ones were like, but certainly the later ones, it is just fucking weird. Like it's tonally all over the shop because it never kind of lives up to its premise. In that the premise is that which is great. The premise is fucking excellent. Is the premise is that there's these ghosts that work for an agency that rent themselves out to do hauntings. Except they never do any fucking haunting, nor are they creepy, nor like they do everything but. And the theme song even sings about it as well. If your mansion house needs haunting, just call Rentaghost. They never go and do any haunting. They always just fuck up the Mika's life in whatever way they can.
I mean, the only time they actually do any haunting is the very first episode of season 5. They have to explain away how oh fuck, which one was it? One of the cast died. Michael Derbyshire died. And then, as a result, Anthony Jackson refused to return.
Right.
So the very first episode of season 5, Fred and Hubert have left an extended tour of stately home hauntings. So Claypole's left to recruit new ghosts, and that kind of explains away how those two characters left. But yeah, that's the only time I have seen that one over the weekend, and that's one of the only times I can remember any actual haunting going on is off screen.
Yeah, and interestingly, like you say, you've seen those ones, but for me, it's always, the show has always been Claypole and Nadia Popov and McWitch.
Yeah,
and look, there were fucking loads of these ghosts. It's just those are the 3 main ones for the later seasons, which are the ones that I watched.
Yeah,
and the ones that I watched as a kid as well. So I mean, more than anything, it's the Claypole show, isn't it? It's all about fucking Claypole and what he can fuck up this week.
I mean, it always was, wasn't it? Even from day one, that's what it was.
Yeah. You could make an argument that maybe it's the Dobbin show in later seasons. But yeah, that's what it was for me. So I never watched those early ones. So the ones I watched certainly didn't have any hauntings, but they were still, as a kid, I think maybe it's just because he was dressed as a jester, but there was something vaguely creepy about Claypole to me.
Yeah.
And he's the least scary ghost you could possibly find. He's a jolly character. He's quite silly. Yeah. It's quite funny. Like there is nothing sinister about him. But I don't know. It's that jester costume. I don't know. Maybe it's because, and actually I found it clear in my dad's house out recently. I remember him having a book, because my dad had loads of books on ghosts and stuff like that. I remember one of them had an image of like it was from behind, and it was like a guy in a jester outfit running down like a foggy street. Like someone of The Exorcist, but imagine a jester, and it was on like British ghosts. And I don't know, maybe that just sunk into my subconscious somewhere. And then I'd see Claypole and be like, oh, that's a scary ghost. Even though it's clearly not a fucking scary ghost, because it's a blithering idiot, basically.
I mean, to be fair though, I mean, looking, I've got the wiki page in front of me because that's where I do all my research, as you know. And it talks about the original cast. It talks about Fred Mumford and he feels he can set up an agency of loser ghosts like him, basically, trying to give themselves a bit of meaning. And it talks about Claypole is a mischievous jester with a comical lack of knowledge about modern technology, and Hubert Davenport, a delicate Victorian-era gentleman who's morally shocked by the modern world. Now, if you look at that, you can transpose that to modern day quite easily.
I'm sure we'll get onto this, but that's one of the main things I thought watching this as well. This is so ripe for just a reboot. I do remember about probably 10 years ago there was talk about Russell Brand doing it.
There was. So there were a couple of things. So you had in 2010 Warner Brothers acquired the rights and wanted to develop into a Beetlejuice style afterlife comedy starring Russell Brand.
Right, I didn't realize it was going to be kind of Beetlejuice but that makes sense because actually the premise is the fucking same.
Yeah, you can see a feature being a feature having that sort of style and fitting this quite nicely. So I mean there was that, and then in October 2011 it was reported that Ben Stiller had been signed for the project, and the Night of the Museum writers had been hired to write it. Funny enough, that's 9 years ago. I'm guessing it ain't happening.
No, I mean that's not as good either. Russell Brand as Claypole I'd take, but Ben Stiller, no, I don't think so. I mean, I don't particularly like Russell Brand, if I'm honest, but I think he'd make a good Claypole.
He's one of these. He's one of these as a comedian, as a presenter, as I think he sort of styles himself a bit of, or fancies himself a bit of a political commentator at the moment. Can't stand the bloke. Think he's an absolute fucking waste of cum. However, as an actor, if you look at him in Forgetting Sarah Marshall and Getting to the Greek, when he's playing that it's basically a caricature of himself, but when he's knowingly doing that and ripping the piss out of himself, he's actually very good and almost likable.
Yeah, I would agree. That's exactly how I feel about him when I say I don't particularly like him, but I think I would definitely watch him do Claypole for 2 hours. I think he'd be quite good at it. But it's interesting, like and this is one of the things that struck me really this time. I think maybe I noticed as a kid that this was a weird show, which is why it never really clicked, but it was funny enough to keep me watching and stuff, and it looked great. It doesn't now, but at the time,
it doesn't stand out now, but at the time,
like at the time, you consider the fucking effects in this thing, and I love some good fucking puppetry and costumes and stuff as well. And there's all sorts of shit. Like they have robots and fucking, there's Dobbin, as scary as he was, is still kind of a giant sort of puppet, essentially. Being sort of puppeteered by two people, front and back, classic pantomime horse. So there's all these effects going on. There was loads of fucking green screen. There was loads of fucking in-camera edits. Like it was fucking technically clever.
Yeah.
But it was kind of all over the shop. And I think I probably picked up on that even then. I just carried on watching it because it was funny and it was so interesting to look at. But you read in the premise to me then, and we've just said how rife it is for reboot. Besides the whole thing of like it basically is Beetlejuice, kinda. Obviously, Beetlejuice is supposed to be an exorcist rather than just a general haunting ghost. But the same thing is like you hire an expert ghost to like get rid of your humans and stuff. Like that all works. But then you've also got the classic odd couple pairing as well that you brought out there. So there's a lot to the premise of this that they just don't use. It's just it's your classic sitcom where it gets to the point where once you know the characters, it's just like, and here's the situation this week.
Well, yeah, that's it. And I mean, after it finished here, so in 1989, Australia, they looked to reprise it for Australian TV. Now, bear in mind, Australian TV is sometimes not as sophisticated as the rest of the world. I mean, I'm thinking, go back to oh fucking hell, the one with the lighthouse.
Round the Twist.
Round the Twist, thank you. I was going to say Round the Bend, I know it wasn't that. Bear in mind they had a fucking toilet monster. They pitched this. They wanted to cast Michael Stanforth and keep him as Claypole, but he was dead by that point, so they kind of scuppered that one because he wasn't actually a jobbing ghost. Who knew? But the pilot had a very Beetlejuice of theme to it. Used a bit more of the sort of pantomime humor from the later years, but basically it was set in an old office block in Victoria, in Southeast Australia, that was due for demolition. So the premise of the series was going to revolve around them basically scaring off the developers.
I mean, that works.
So I mean, it works.
It's not Rentaghost, but it works.
But I mean, no, it's as a starting point. It wasn't wasn't bad. But then a young actress called Lisa McCune, who's apparently now a big deal in Australia, mistakenly believes them to be living people who can exercise her apartment. So she ends up working as their secretary. So again, you've got that. There's a nice in. There's that classic sitcom bit whereby we have a cipher to take us into the world.
Yes,
and it seemed like a fairly straightforward translation. I mean, Australia have got quite a good history of taking things like this and adapting them and making a success out of them. Unfortunately, the pilot didn't sell. The network they were trying to sell to figured it was a bit too dark to be aimed for young children.
Too dark. I mean, Jesus, that is interesting. So they would that was a big tonal shift then.
Yeah,
because this is not dark.
No, it's not. And I mean, this would have been 1989 in Australia, and when was Round the Twist? That was early 90s, wasn't that?
Yeah, that would have been about the same time, I'd have thought.
Yeah, there's not much difference in it. So, I mean, to say the tone is that much darker, I don't get, really.
No. Yeah, but I mean, we haven't seen it, so we don't know. As I said, there is potential for this to be dark. It just isn't. And, even even the version that we got as a kid, they were the odd thing that just unsettled me. I said the main thing was the fucking ghost, and that was scary. The fucking ghost holding the Rentaghost sign was fucking scary. Like, because it was a see-through fucking ghost, and it came across as most ghosts are, and it came across the fucking screen, and it just looked sinister. It looked like a fucking phantom or something.
Because the fact it was holding the sign as well, and the sign was completely opaque. It was a solid white sign, and then you had this semi-transparent thing holding it. It just
but he was kind of leering over the top of it as well, and kind of grimacing and just looking really fucking horrible.
Yeah, and so because it was semi-transparent. If you think of like the Ghostbusters logo again as a prime example of where we've had ghosts in cartoons, the actual logo, it's not scary at all. It's a very friendly that sheet over your head sort of KKK look, and that's kind of what the Rentaghost sign is. But then because you've got something that looks more plausible behind it, you can see why that, right, to a child that would be fucking terrifying.
Yeah, and then it's got the kind of oldie worldy baroque jingly jangly kind of sound to the theme as well, which you kind of associate with that kind of Claypole era of kind of medieval times, and that throws you back to kind of haunted houses and castles. So there was definitely something creepy about it. And then the episode would start, and Claypole's creepy costume aside, it would be like 25 minutes of pissing about, and it literally is 25 minutes of pissing about. Like when I say it's a sitcom, like it is a sitcom in every sense of the word, to the point where it's essentially like there's not even a real through line in these episodes. Like there is a very, very loose kind of thread that'll tie the opening scene and the last scene together, and then there are a collection essentially of skits in the middle. They attempt to have a B story most times, but that just kind of again just dies a death, and it is essentially skits that barely hold together with a narrative theme.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. You took the literal words out of my mouth. It's a collection of skits.
It is, isn't it?
And somehow they'll just every now and again there's the odd line to remind you there's actually a story supposed to be happening.
Yeah, there's actually something supposed to be happening here. And because it's a collection of skits, it is hit and miss. Sometimes I'll be honest, like some of the stuff I've watched, I've seen about 6 or 7, I think, this weekend. I haven't had a lot of time again this week, but that tells you something about my reaction to the show. I found time to watch some. It's easy to watch, and it when it works, it does work. Like I've genuinely laughed at some of it still, and then there's some of it that is so bad it's funny, and intentionally so. It means to be that corny and that cheesy, and then there's some of it that does just kind of die a death. But then also we have to remember that we're like 40 years removed, really, from some of this stuff now.
Well,
50, nearly 50 years in some cases, 50, I guess.
And again, you've got to remember we're not the fucking target. As men in our almost 40s. We're not the fucking target audience for this either. So we're not supposed to find things funny. Add to that the massive cultural shift between then and now. Well, there's some bits are really going to fall flat.
Yeah, I mean, there's that as well. I don't want to dwell on it too much, but obviously, there are cultural attitudes, particularly towards gender identities, and there's some problematic depictions of other cultures, shall we say, as well.
That's putting it nicely.
Yeah, and we're pretty sensitive to that sort of thing in the show. I think it's fair to say that everybody out there knows we're pretty left-leaning, and we are pretty sensitive to this kind of stuff. And fuck, we've ripped shows apart for it in the past. But I mean, I'm not excusing it here, but I kind of feel like I'm willing to hand wave it a little bit more, just because you kind of go, but it's so. This show is just so innocent. It generally is. You cannot believe for a second that there was any malice behind any of this.
If anything, you kind of look at it and go, well, it's being done as a sort of pastiche. It's been done as to hold a mirror up to the shows that do this that do this through their general attitude. I mean, again, it's a very difficult one, and you see it a lot now where people go, "Oh, that thing that was made 60 years ago, it doesn't reflect who we are as people now," and it's not going to, because there's been such a massive social and cultural shift.
Yes.
So, and it's difficult because you don't want to excuse it by saying, "Oh, it's a product of its time," because any sort of bigotry is never acceptable. But at the same time, prevailing attitudes for a time will define what's popular, what makes it into an edit, what makes it into a draft, because. Especially if you're writing comedy, you want to play to the lowest common denominator and make things that will make people laugh. Now, not saying it's right to be laughing at people in blackface or to be, and also the jokes about gender and sexuality and things like that. But that's the time that it was made, and so it's easy to see where that is coming from. Even if you don't like it, it's understandable why it's there.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't see any blackface in the episodes I was watching. I didn't know. It wouldn't surprise me if blackface was.
No,
a thing
that was an example. I don't know if there was.
I didn't see any of that, and I think I would be. Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me, and I probably wouldn't handwave that as much as I do. I'm talking more things like characters like Muckwitch and Nadia Popov, and which again are so pervasive of the time. I mean, Popov especially. You compare that to a Low Low. Yeah. And is it really that different?
Yeah, exactly.
And then when you look at sort of the relationship between Mr. and Mrs. Meeker, and how she's the nagging battle axe of a housewife, and he's the put upon husband who's just trying to earn a crust, and it's that kind of thing. But that is every sitcom from the late 70s, early 80s. That was the cultural attitude at the time. And I think it's like you're saying, you look at these things and say they reflect the era, and we can go as way back if we even take, I mean, just not to go too off topic, we can go all the way back and take something like Song of the South. I think it's fine for us now as a culture to look back at that, as long as we recognize that, yes, okay, it's never really been acceptable, but the culture was such at that time that you could get away with this. Now, if it's a good product, that doesn't mean that it's no longer a good product, but you have to be aware when you look back at it now that there are difficulties and problems with that, and that is not acceptable anymore. I think it's okay providing you go in and you question and you go with an open mind and you understand that it's wrong. That doesn't mean you can't enjoy that product. And so that's kind of how I feel about this. This is not the only, especially the generation that we grew up in, this isn't the only problematic gender depiction that we've seen. In fact, it's
probably one of the less offensive, actually.
Yeah, I'm shocked that as a generation, men of our age didn't grow up as wife beaters, every one of us, to be honest.
Well,
because
as I said, there's still plenty around.
Yeah, I'm sure there are, but the majority of us, I think, are far more culturally sensitive to this sort of thing. And that is because, to their credit, people in the 90s woke up and started to realize that, women are equals. And guess what? They have brains too. And they are people, But that wasn't such a thing in the 80s, unfortunately.
No.
And as you say, this
certainly
is
before that. I mean, if you look at this started in 76 and ended in 84. So, I mean, this is barely qualified as an 80s product. Yeah,
and I think you're dead right, and I sort of touched on it as well. I think this is probably one of the least offensive depictions of that, and it just because it is so innocent. And yes, Mrs. Meeker is depicted as being the kind of nagging battle axe housewife, as I said, but having said all of that, she does get agency in the stories, and she does get a lot of screen time, and occasionally she gets the upper hand as well. So
yeah,
it's not all one-sided.
Although didn't they turn into a Cocker Spaniel once as well?
I mean, they've turned her into gorilla. They've turned her into all fucking sorts.
I'm sure. I remember that. I'm just gonna see if I can find it now.
I mean, nothing surprises me with this show. It's so fucking random. It's just in the handful of episodes I've watched, there's been fucking flying cars, robots. They've turned her into a gorilla. There's been fucking there's one where she's an opera singer and she can break glass with her voice.
Yeah, I watched that one today. Actually, that was quite funny. Because the whole premise is he's sick in bed.
Yes, that's the one. Yeah,
and there's a really nice gag in it actually, whereby she comes in and starts shrieking with her this horrible singing voice, and he tells her to go and sing in the garden, so at least the neighbours can see that he's not beating her up.
Yeah,
which I thought was brilliant.
Yeah,
because it's such a stupid gag. But again, talking about what we've just been talking about, some of that. The attitudes we would have seen towards especially married couples of that age in that era, that it wouldn't for her to walk out with a black eye one morning wouldn't have been out of place on a lot of TV shows. So again, the fact that they are intentionally mocking that, I think it's a really good thing. It's a really clever thing, and it's the sort of thing that it's easy to. And I wouldn't have noticed shit like this when I saw it first. I mean, I'd have seen this in reruns,
no.
And I'd have been about 5 when this was fucking rerunning. So I mean, I wouldn't have taken a lot in apart from Crazy Scottish Lady and the horse and stuff like that. So I wouldn't have noticed anything like that. So to go back and watch that, and that did actually make me titter a little bit. I was like, oh, fucking okay. And then looking out for more stuff like that. And it was in there. It wasn't as prevalent as it possibly could have been. They did rely an awful lot on a bit more of the sort of the tomfoolery aspect, but those lines were there if you looked for them.
I mean, let's remember as well. Yeah, I mean, you're right. There are every now and again there's an absolute just stormer of a line and to be fair, the cast as well have all got good comedy chops. When they're given that stuff, they know what they're doing with it. I think it's fair to say that the whole cast are, some of them not the best actors in the world, but they're certainly good performers and good comedians.
Yeah, I was going to say there's definitely a performance aspect there, even if they're not acting brilliantly. They're not that great at it.
Yeah.
You look at people like Biggins, who pop up every now and again, who's generally, I mean, now he's regarded as sort of a bit of a national treasure, but at the time he was quite annoying. But I quite liked him in this.
I think he's great in it. I think he's really, really good. And he's not his typical self either.
No, that's it. He's not playing the sort of the camped up, wrong side of middle age, sort of showbiz type.
Say it. Go on.
Nope.
Say it.
Nope. But he's not playing. He's not in the persona he presents now. And for that, I think if he had been presenting in that way in this show, I think his character would have been completely lost.
I think so, because you've got, I mean, yes, he's younger, but you've got Claypole for that kind of over the top, overly camp.
Yeah,
you've got Claypole for that. Still less camp than Biggins at the height of his campness, but you've got that there. So yeah, he would have been lost. But again, character like Claypole, like when he gets the opportunity, he is very, very funny. Most of the time, he's a really bad actor and quite annoying.
Yeah.
But given the right material, there's at least once per episode I will, and it'll be something Claypole's done that I did find myself just laughing. His comic timing is fantastic.
Yeah.
But then this is a sitcom. There's no requirement for these performances to be amazing.
Yeah,
they need to make you laugh, and it's a children's sitcom at that.
Nobody's winning Emmys for this shit. But no, it's a product that does what it's supposed to do. And I mean, like talking about Claypole and his timing, in the episode we was talking about where Mika is ill, and he's reading a book of it's like horoscopes effectively, and he just delivers them as if they're the most serious news article he's ever read.
Mm. Yeah,
and Mika just turns around and said, "They weren't written by soothsayers." And I can't remember what the joke was, and it just his face just sort of drops because like, hang on, this is like my Bible. How can you say this isn't real? Yeah,
it's
one of those you see him doing that, and those things he pulls off really well. But then later on in the episode where a spell goes wrong, because of course it fucking does, and all of a sudden Mika's seeing out of his ears, smelling through his eyes, and tasting through his nose or whatever it is, and so he's there with his head side on, and he's looking at Claypole said, "Oh, look at me," and he's sort of trying to get around him. He said, "I am looking at you." Effectively, I'm looking at you, you twat. You've fucked up my eyes. But again, it's just And
I wish those were the words. I wish that's what he said.
Let's be fair. If we'd written it, it would be. But it's almost as sometimes when you have that sort of physical comedy, especially in kids stuff, the temptation is to be so over the top.
Which he is a lot of the time.
Yeah, a lot of the time he is. And I'm thinking of things like Michelangelo, Wolf, and stuff like that, where the characters are so extroverted and so extravagant and so flamboyant in places that their movements are all exaggerated. And you've got Claypole there, and he's trying to look him in the eye, and obviously he's not seeing out of his eyes, so he's trying to get really close, and you can see him trying to move with his head to a point where Mika turns his head so he's sort of side on, and you can see Claypole almost just sort of following around and smacking into the wall. And he just about misses it. Now, whether that's intentional, whether he's supposed to hit it and missed it, or whether he should have hit it because it would have been funnier, I don't know. But just that very subtle physical comedy really does work, whereas some of the over-the-top shit goes a bit too far.
I find I find it's not so much his physicality that's over the top as his delivery of a lot of his lines. I think you're right. I think
I was thinking in general
yeah,
with the
yeah.
show rather than him particularly.
Yeah, I think his physicality is excellent. And as you say, now and again, he just manages to completely nail one of the lines. And now and again, you also get those ones like you talked about with Mika that are just very intelligently written and will just fly over the head of the children. But there's something in there for mum and dad. There, it's not full of it, which you would expect it to be, but there is the odd double entendre in there as well.
Yeah.
Not as blatant as some of the shows we look at. This really is. It's so innocent, this show. It's unbelievably good natured, which is one of the things that surprised me the most with it. I don't remember it just being this sweet.
No.
There is just something, and maybe that's time as well, and maybe that's me reminiscing and things, because there is still the odd problematic thing, like you say, and at the end of the day they torture the shit out of the poor neighbors.
Yeah.
But it just all seems like really good natured fun, and you hit the nail on the head there. I wanted to talk about this as we were going through this sort of led on to shows like Michelangelo and Woof and Supergran and all of these other kind of children's sitcoms that started springing up, and you follow that thread through then where sort of we stopped producing them in this country, and then you had the sort of Nickelodeon shows and the Disney Channel shows. And so many of them have a tendency to just pitch to the stalls and just treat children like idiots. And I don't feel like this ever does that. Yes, it's silly. Yes, it's absolutely bonkers. But I don't feel like it ever treats kids as idiots, or, which children are fucking stupid. We've said that on this show before as well. But they don't talk down, is what I'm trying to say. This is pitched to children, so it's very broad comedy. But at no point do they feel the need to stop and explain it to them. At no point do they try and educate us. Nobody's got a lesson to learn.
Yeah.
It's...
But I mean, not only that, it doesn't resort to fart jokes.
No, not at all. There's no different fart jokes at all that I know of.
No, that's what I mean. I mean, it doesn't talk down to kids, but at the same time, it's not pandering to the lowest common 2-year-old who will think that's hilarious because, farting. Don't get me wrong. There's a place.
Hey, hang on. Yeah, I find farting hilarious.
There's a place. There is a very valid place for dick and fart jokes, and I stand by that mainly because that's mostly what we do. That and swear a lot, but I think when you aim that at kids, the temptation is just to make a Terence and Philip style fart fest, whereby every punchline is a fart, every fight ends with a fart on the head. It just stops being funny because it's oversaturation.
I don't know. You know what I mean?
Well, but yeah, it's that sort of thing where
it's its own thing. Like Round the Bend, for instance, is its own thing. You know what you're getting when you're watching Round the Bend, and you're getting those dick and fart jokes.
Even then, like we talked this I won't say a couple of weeks ago. I can't remember how long ago it was, but we talked about Round the Bend. I mean, yeah, it's at some point in 2020, but a lot of shit's happened in 2020, so I don't fucking know. But like even then, yeah, you did have that that intentional toilet humor, but it was done in such a way that it wasn't a way out. It wasn't a last resort or a cop out, or we can't think of a punchline, so quick fart. It wasn't that. It was even the jokes that ended with a fart were constructed.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's the difference. And I think where you look at and for a show like this to not resort to that in 9 years or 9 seasons, to not resort to that is a hell of an achievement. Yeah,
and yes, it definitely is. And you say I think there's credit to the creators there for not taking it down that path. I genuinely think, I mean, I don't know a huge amount. Again, I've done no fucking research. I rely on Mark for that. But you get the impression as well that whilst it's very much the creators' show, that cast are so talented physically, as we said, and are such good performers. You get the feeling that probably they have a fair bit of involvement there as well. And it just kind of feels, or maybe this is me romanticizing it, I don't know, but it just kind of feels like if that had happened, they'd have gone, no, hang on, look, we're better than fart gags.
Yeah.
Like, we can do better than this. And then they very much feel like a troop of lovies who are making a TV show together. That's how it feels to me.
Very much so.
And I'm fine with that. That's we've moved in those circles. We still move in those circles. So I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I don't have an issue with that. I mean, it's funny enough talking about the cast. Actually, I was flicking through earlier to try and sort of pick out names I knew, and obviously you got Sue Nichols, who did Rose of All, Reginald Perrin. I think she's been in Coronation Street for about 56 billion years or something like that.
Audrey. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it Audrey? Yeah, it's Audrey, isn't it?
So
Yeah.
I mean, she was. No, I will always know her as Nadia Popov because
Yeah, me
that's
too.
where I saw her first.
Yeah, me too.
And then you've
to
got
the point where Coronation Street used to confuse the shit out of me as a kid.
Yeah, because she was in both, and you could see her in both at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that did for me as well for quite a while. The other one I noticed actually was Linda Marshall, who played Tamara Novak.
Yeah.
Who did she go on to be?
I don't know. What's this? Fucking Who Wants to Be a Millionaire?
No, this is proof that we do fuck all research. So I made a point of this earlier. Linda LaPlante, the author, who's like fucking multiple best-selling crime novels and shit. She's fucking Tamara Novak. I'd never put the two of them as being the same person.
I mean, I don't think I've ever read a fucking Linda LaPlante novel in my life.
They're very heavy.
I know of her.
Crime novels. But no, they're crime novels with people like us speaking in them. So every other word is cunt or fuck.
Maybe I should read some Linda LaPlante then.
Yeah.
I assumed they'd be like boring old lady fiction.
No, they're proper. They're fucking violent, all sorts of shit.
Oh, I didn't know this. Excuse
my
ignorance. Okay, I'll read some then. I assumed it would be like I fucking hate old lady crime novels.
Dude. Oh yeah,
I fucking hate them. They make my skin crawl.
Yeah. It's like the police can't solve it. The actual proper detectives and people who are paid and trained can't solve it. But the two old biddies over their fucking tea and cake can solve it. Nah.
Yeah, fucking. And I just hate that oldie worldy murder mystery bullshit. So like, fuck you and your Midsummer Murders and all that. But it just fuck right off.
I'm not being funny, right? Midsummer. Who the fuck lives in Midsummer? They have like 4 murders every week.
Exactly.
Why would you move
like
there?
The small town murder story is just like, look, fuck off. Just this. Nobody's buying this. No one cares. It's not interesting. Like, if I want to read about
the same 4 people every week,
and if I want to fucking read about tea and scones, I'll buy a fucking cookery book. All right, I'm not gonna get a fucking murder novel for that shit.
Let's be fair. I'm not reading, but I was gonna go to Tesco's and buy some fucking scones. Other supermarkets are available.
I who drinks fucking tea anyway.
Exactly.
Like, seriously. Well, we're British, so I suppose we should. But no, hey.
Yeah, no.
Like I say, we don't pervade stereotypes on this show.
Fuck tea.
Well, yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, I was quite surprised. I would never have put those 2 people as being the same woman.
No, I had no fucking idea. I seriously failed your pop quiz. But proof that I do no fucking research. I'm not making this shit up, guys. I watch these episodes and use my fucking memory. That's it for me. So if I don't know stuff, I'll happily, plead ignorance to it. Yeah, I just don't fucking know. And I'm not going to read it because I haven't got time because I'm watching this stuff. I mean, most of the rest of the cast went on to die, I think.
Yeah,
like
pretty much.
Pretty much.
I mean, they were all cracking on a bit when they did this. Let's not forget. I mean, they did this for they did it for 8 years. I mean, let's say Michael Derbyshire died between seasons 4 and 5. Michael Stanforth died just after it finished.
He was relatively young, though, wasn't he? Relatively speaking.
Relatively. Born in 42, died in 87. So he's 45.
Yeah, there you go. I thought so. So he wasn't cracking on. Yeah.
Died of AIDS.
Okay.
Yeah, he was openly gay, died from AIDS-related illness in July 1987.
No research, everybody.
I'm reading it now. That's why my head keeps going over there because I'm reading on the other screen.
You'd think I'd know that, though, at least. That feels like it would have been. But then I was like a tiny person. So
yeah. You were still in single figures there, so I wouldn't know. I wouldn't beat yourself up about it too much.
I probably couldn't spell AIDS at that point, let alone know what it was. So, yeah.
Yeah, maybe. But yeah, I mean, yeah, the cast did largely all just fuck off and die, didn't they? Apart from Biggins and
Audrey. Audrey's still alive.
Yeah, she's still going strong.
I think.
And Linda Marshall.
Linda LaPlante.
Yeah. Trying to see if anybody else is still alive.
I don't think so. I think pretty much everybody's fucking dead.
Yeah, I mean, Sheila Mumford had a career that spanned from the 30s to the 80s, so she's probably dead by now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh fuck, that's a good one. So on Wikipedia, when you hover over the link to the actors on the so for example, on Michael Stanforth, his isn't great. Sue Nichols, for example, English actress known for her roles on British television in Crossroads, Rise and Fall of Reginald Perrin, Rentaghost, and Coronation Street. And then for Edward Brayshaw, who played Mika, Edward John Brayshaw was a British actor.
Oh, brilliant! Thanks for that. Yeah.
So that's really fucking insightful. Thanks very much.
Yeah. It's a shame, isn't it? That like, well, I mean, it's not a shame. Obviously, they had however many years it was out of this show. It ran for a long time.
It ran for 9 seasons over 8 years, so they did
And I
all right.
feel, yeah, I feel like our generation and the generation before us, you know, to us, these are probably like big names and big people. But I think I feel like this has just kind of been lost to time now. And I think
Yeah.
that's quite, I really think that's quite sad when you consider it ran for so long and they were all clearly so talented.
Although saying that on Pointless the other day, the final round question was kids TV, 80s kids TV, and there's the final one where you get to
Right.
name as many as you
First
can.
of all, that's not pointless.
Well,
Nothing
yeah,
pointless about 80s children's TV.
but that was the category, and one of the subcategories where you had to know where you could pick cast from was characters from Rentaghost, and the only
Holy shit.
I know the only one they could remember, given the people we just talked about, like Biggins and Soon, the only one they could remember was Molly Weir.
Really?
Who I had to go back and think, who the fuck was Molly Weir? And I had to look up who it was.
So what? It was actors from Rentaghost.
Yeah, cast off, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say because if it's characters like Dobbin,
characters is easy, yeah.
Dobbin, it's done.
But yeah, those the only obviously looking for a pointless answer, so the one that nobody else has said. But the only person they could remember was Molly Weir. I'm thinking, I wouldn't have known her name. It was just I was Hazel McWitch, but it's like, how the fuck do you not remember Biggins, for example, as being in that show?
So I mean, you might have explained to me. I don't watch daytime TV like at all. In fact, I haven't even got a fucking aerial plugged in. So it's pointless is like reverse Family Fortunes then.
Yeah, you forget.
Oh right, okay. So you give like the shit answer. Right.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, they ask 100 people to name something, and then the idea is you get the lowest possible score. If you get a 0 in the first couple of rounds, they put money into the jackpot, and the final round you have to get a points answer to win the jackpot.
Oh, okay. Right. So yeah, shit Family Fortunes.
Pretty much, yeah. Although, have you seen Family Fortunes nowadays?
No, I haven't seen Family Fortunes probably for fucking hell. I don't even know, 20 years.
I hadn't seen it since Les Dennis left.
I was going to say last I knew, Les Dennis was doing it. So.
Yeah, so he left, and Vernon Kay did it for a while because he was popular, and Les Dennis had a breakdown of Big Brother. And now, oh fuck, what's his name? That Italian TV chef on This Morning.
Again.
Yeah,
no daytime TV.
I totally did tell me his name, and I can't even remember it now. It was only on Saturday night. But yeah. So he hosts it now, and it's just like it's just imagine a series of carry-on gags interspersed with questions.
So just like when Les Dennis did it.
Oh, it's not that clever anymore, though. At least
it's not that clever. Jesus Christ.
Yeah. At least he knew how to deliver them. At least he knew how to sell a joke.
Yeah. Okay.
New guy doesn't. New guy's all about raising eyebrows and pretending he doesn't understand camp things.
I might watch that. It sounds all right.
Horrendous, it really is. But yeah, anyway, massively off point for a change.
Yeah, where the fuck we were talking about people being dead. And not being, but yeah, and I think it's sad. I really do think it's sad that I don't think the generation after us will sort of we'll get it. I don't think it's going to be rerun ever again. It's not the easiest thing to get hold of.
No, I mean,
it is out there if you happen to buy it years ago. But
yeah, they did show the early couple of series on UK Gold many fucking years ago. But even that, I said that was fucking a long time ago. The masters of the original 3 series were wiped.
I remember reading about this. Yeah, there was a whole, but didn't they get them back from Australia or something?
Yeah, something like that. They basically, BBC did it all the time. They used to wipe masters because they thought, we're not going to use it again. It's run its course. We'll just get rid of them. So they wiped them and reused the tapes. But they sold them. So what they used to do is wipe them and sell the tapes to countries that still use that format.
Yeah.
But then BBC Enterprises had copies of them for selling internationally, and so at some point they managed to recover them. So that was a good thing. It was a big win for them. And they're now in the BBC archives, so they've got them and they'll preserve them, presumably until they can't be asked anymore.
I mean, I think it's so it exists in that form, but like because so many of the cast are dead as well, it's not like there can ever be a revival of this. There can be a reboot, but there can never really be a revival. And I think it's just there's just something that really bothers me, that I think this is just going to eventually go away.
It will, and I think, I mean, you said earlier on, I mean, we kind of stopped doing this sort of show in the 90s.
Oh, yeah, completely.
And America fucking ran with it. They took the ball and they ran with it to a point where you have entire channels doing this shit now. And these kid-centric sitcoms, and some of them are all right, some of them are shit. But no, you'll get another case of anything. But yeah, we really stopped producing, and I think that as we've moved from one generation into the next, that form of storytelling doesn't exist anymore. People don't want to see that now.
No, I think you're dead right. I was just about to pick up on that as soon as you finished. Like, yeah, America picked up and ran with it, and they made these kids sitcoms, but they are far more tightly plotted. They are more episodic.
Yeah.
Whereas this is a traditional British sitcom in every sense of the word. It throws back to the 60s and 70s style of sitcom that we were producing, where it literally is like, here are a bunch of one-note characters, and this is what they're doing this week. Cue hilarity, and there's just sketches. And and one thing Rentaghost does really well, and it is very sort of tropey of British sitcoms of this era as well, is if you notice, the first scene and the last scene will tie together perfectly.
Yes.
And the opening credits will come over the front scene, and the closing credits will go over the back scene, and it's like a vaudeville stage production. It's like, here's all your cast in one scene to start with. This is the setup for this week. Here's the credits. Here's who they are. And then at the end, it's like, here's all the cast once more, closing the scene out. Here's their name. Here's who they are. Now take a bow and fuck off. And it's very, very stagey and it does feel quite vaudevillian. It's like, that's the one that did this week, and that's the one that sung this week, and that's the one that done. And they'll be doing a little bit of whatever it was their key thing for that episode. And that was a very British thing, rather than having these really slick, put together kind of credits. Yeah, they would open and close like that, and it's such a trope that you can look at any sitcom from that period and go, yep, that's a 70s British sitcom. There it is. And
I mean, if you look at Bob Block, who created and wrote, he wrote every episode, I think. But he did a lot of work for radio, did a lot of work with people like Frankie Howerd, Arthur Askey. He had that grounding. So things you were seeing coming out in that period, in sort of the 60s and 70s, he was very much involved with a lot of stuff like that. And then he went into doing kids TV. He did Pardon My Genie, Robert's Robots, Galloping Galaxies, which I don't remember, but on Rentaghost. I mean, he
I don't remember any of those shows.
I remember Robert's Robots. Well, I remember seeing it on reruns because it was on in the mid 70s. I remember seeing it in reruns. I think it was on ITV. But he had a very good pedigree in terms of the way he developed his development. So working with people like Arthur Askey and Frankie Howerd when they were at the peak of their powers as well. So it's not surprising that there's a very definite style that's observable during in the course of his work.
Yeah, that definitely rubs off. You can see that, and I think that's what it is that just, as I've been watching it, has just drawn me back to this show, because yes, there's still some problematic stuff in there, but also if you try and watch any of the other shows, sitcoms especially of that era, fucking hell. Now, you want to talk about watch it and enjoy it, but ask questions, like, Jesus Christ, the attitudes you get in those shows. Like, it is really difficult. Whereas this is just, it's fucking silly knockabout fun. You can switch your brain off for 25 minutes to watch one of these,
That's it. I mean, you look at some of the shit that was churned out in the 70s, things like fucking Alf Garnett and Love Thy Neighbor and fucking Desmond,
which I absolutely fucking loved as a kid. Absolutely loved a bit of Alf Garnett as a kid. And I watch it now and just cringe.
Well, that's certainly, and you look at it, I mean, especially the part of the world we're from, there were a lot of attitudes around like that into the mid 80s and early 90s.
I still know some Alf Garnets.
Well, yeah, I tend to avoid them if I can, but yeah, I still have to work with a couple of them, unfortunately.
I can't, because I've it's not that they're related to me, but they're just like old men that you grew up with now, so you can't not speak to them. Like, they just respect your elders and all that shit. Just quietly ignore what they're saying.
Yeah, just don't get involved. But I mean, I get it in work every now and again. You sit there thinking, you're 65 years old, fucking retire already, so I haven't got to chin you.
Yeah.
That sort of stuff was around. And so, I mean, again, as you say, the fact that this was able to avoid so many of those fucking pitfalls and keep a very light-hearted, very quick, very easygoing show was quite a testament. I think they did really well. I mean, I'm just reading now some of the summaries of the episodes on Wikipedia. There's a list of all the episodes up until about season 7, and then it just says episode 1, episode 2, episode 3, and they haven't got the descriptions of them. But like, talking about now as a very simple premise and a one-note gag that then string 25 minutes out of. So the very first episode, the synopsis is: a recently deceased Fred Mumford needs to find money to fund his new ghost rental business. He hopes his parents will help him, however, they haven't been told he's dead yet.
That's fucking funny.
That's fucking genius.
That's funny, but that's not the show that we get.
No, and then it spins off into far different things. I mean, by the time you get to episode 4, for example, the Rentaghost team are engaged by a security firm to patrol a huge department store and stop shoplifting. However, Claypole is going through a mischievous phase when his poltergeist powers are at their strongest. So again, they're not fucking Rentaghosts then, are they?
No, they're security guards.
Yeah.
But even that, you can see how, okay, they're ghosts, so they're scaring people away from the department store, maybe.
Yeah.
So that's still got a little bit of scaring about it. I mean, by the time you get to the later seasons, they're just like, they're having a fashion show. Like, one of them, Mr. Meeker's sick, so they're all playing fucking doctors and nurses. There's one where they all become toys. It's just like, it's just at that point, it's here are two reasonably average people for the time living with a bunch of ghosts. That's what it becomes. Actually, they're not even living with them. They work for them, but
it's a bit strange, isn't it? Because it evolves to he's their landlord, so then he owns the business. So let's say you move on and you get by the time you get to season 7, you've got a holiday of havoc at the seaside when Claypole makes a Spanish galleon materialize, and the pirate owner turns Ethel Meeker into a herring.
There you go.
But
I mean,
again,
what's that got to do with renting ghosts?
Well, that's it. I say it's funny, and I'll give that one a look. It sounds interesting. However, it's fuck all to do with them being rent-a-ghosts.
No, and I'm not ragging on this show, okay? I think it has its faults. We haven't talked about them too much, actually, but it does have its faults. It's of its time, and not all of the comedy works and what have you. So, but I'm not going to rag on it. Just all I'm saying is I think there is a much stronger show somewhere in that fucking original premise.
Yeah, definitely.
That I really want to see. Like, and yes, it kind of did sort of, not this literally did become Beetlejuice, but that premise does kind of follow through into Beetlejuice.
And I mean, the thing is, I'm surprised because it's not as if, and we've seen it so many times that we saw when we talked about Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventures last time out. When you have a change in regime, you have a change in showrunner, you have a change in cast, you get a very definite change in tone.
Yeah.
And you can normally tell the difference in quality, whether it's better or worse. You can normally tell where the change happens. This is the same people from day one. I think some of the cast have gone because one died and the other one didn't want to come back without him. But it's the same writer, the same producer, the same director. So there's no reason for these fundamental shifts. But it's just for whatever reason, they deviated so far from the premise. Even by the end of the first season, it's kind of there was no going back for it without almost undoing any goodwill they had built up from that first season.
And I think a lot of that comes down to, and sitcoms are really guilty of this. Sitcoms as a genre will jump the shark far earlier than any other TV genre because, you have a paper thin concept to start with and you have to stretch it out for so many episodes. So there's that. Yeah. However, I feel like, as I say, I think there's plenty of legs in Rent-A-Ghost's original concept, but there's that. Then there's the fact that, as we've already talked about, you've clearly got a very talented cast who clearly know how to bounce off each other as well.
Yeah.
So there comes a point where you're fucking, as a director, you're herding fucking cats. You're just like, all right, let them go. As long as we land this shit, just let them do what they want to do.
Yeah. As long as the first scene and the last scene are as written, the rest of it just fucking go nuts.
And it's not like there's even any emotional beats to land because it's mostly just pissing about. So you're just like, okay, just let them go. Let it, trust them to the point where you wonder, there's definitely a lot of stuff in there that is tightly scripted. They definitely are. Particularly some of the spells and stuff like that. They're very the gags are razor sharp. They are really well sort of constructed. And then other ones, like you say, the throwaway one with Mika, where he says, go and sing in the garden so people can see I'm not beating you or whatever. You get the impression that that's just somebody on the day going, yeah, fuck it. I'll give it a go. And he's just thrown it in offhand. You know,
Yeah.
I don't think, I could be wrong, but it doesn't feel to me that would have been the script. Whereas, you know, most of Claypole's spells and stuff like that,
Yeah.
obviously they involve effects.
Yeah.
So they're
So they
kind of
have to be
played.
written then.
Yeah, so they have to be written. They're played for and got. But yeah, I think that's what it is. I think there's partly that you can only stretch that concept for so long, and partly that when you've got a cast like that who know each other, who've worked together for a long time, and who are just talented. It's as simple as that. You just, as a director, you're going, fuck. And look, direction in TV is totally different to direction in film and stuff as well. As a director in TV, you're just hitting deadlines basically. The writer and the producer are doing all the fucking work for you. You're just making the thing fucking fly like that, because you know that cast know each other so well. I guess it's slightly different if they had one permanent director on this rather than chopping and changing directors over the course of a series. Maybe he wasn't a gun hire, but still, like, he's probably just coming in and going, and a lot of this as well, you know, is your classic sort of 2-3 camera sitcom setup. We've not got roving cameras and stuff like that. They went outside, they went on location a lot, but most of the time is set the camera up, have a reverse angle, lock it off we go, let them do their thing. It's very stagey.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably part of it as well. It probably got to the point where, you know, somebody sat in a writing room going, right, how many have we got this season? Right, we've got to do 10 of these fucking things. Okay, what's I don't know. Let's make Dobbin a super horse. That'll do. 25 minutes. There you go. Run with it, guys. You know, I think that's probably part of it. And that's a strength and a weakness. I think as long as your cast is this good, fine. Just let them do it. I mean, I think it doesn't always work. Like I say, there are moments in this where you watch it and you're just going, ooh. Like, there are some real clangers.
Yeah.
But for every one of those, there is a gag that hits as well. And I think it's just so lovely. It's just so eminently likable that it just carries you through. It's just, there's no other word for it. It's silly is what it is. It is absolutely silly.
It is, but it knows it.
Yes.
It's not trying to be anything else.
No, it knows exactly how silly it is. I mean, pantomime horses, you know, and it's not like any other show. The temptation would have been to have had Dobbin turn into a real horse. And the pantomime horse turn into a real... No, he's a pantomime horse. He's a pantomime horse that now is just with them all the time because he got animated. But it's a pantomime horse. It's two people in a horse. It's not a fucking horse. And it's not meant to be a horse, and it just happens to be a puppet. It's an actual fucking pantomime horse.
Yeah.
And it's never pretending that he's anything else.
No, and I mean, like, even the way they did it as well. I mean, I don't remember. I'm just reading it, or I read it earlier on, that they brought him in for an episode. It was supposed to be a one-off Christmas episode, and then they brought Claypole brought him to life by accident, and he couldn't reverse a spell. Right. And that's how they wrote him in. So no, they even to the point where they're introducing new characters, they've gone to the trouble of writing them in rather than just having them appear. Yeah, and I think that would be the temptation. That, you know, well, they're ghosts, so at some point somebody else has died, so we can just bring it in. But no, they did the same with Catastrophe Kate as well. They actually wrote her in. You know, so rather than just sort of saying, right, okay, as of this week we have a new character, which you have. You know, I mean, we talked about a lot of the American cartoons where it's, you know, they're toy machines. Oh, we'll introduce a new character because we're not selling enough toys to girls this week. Yeah. This was like, no, we'll seed it and we'll actually do it properly. We'll bring them in and we'll give them a backstory and we'll give them something to do, rather than you say, well, here we go, we've got a disastrous cowgirl this week. We've got a horse next week. They've actually taken the time to make them proper characters in their own right. Yeah, I think there's genuine care and affection, I think, for the show and the characters from everyone involved in it, and that comes through. Yeah. Everyone, they know it's a kid's show, they know it's silly, but you just feel like everyone involved just loves the product and loves what they're doing. And that is infectious. And it just oozes out of this show. No one there is having a bad time. No. Or if they are, they're masking it incredibly well. You know? Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, I think it's generally, I mean, you see it where people don't go on from kids' TV into adult TV. I don't mean adult programs, but into conventional television or mainstream television. You don't tend to make that leap because once you start in TV, if you're good at it, you stay in it, and if you're shit at it, you don't work anywhere. So the fact that a couple of these people have gone on to have bigger careers is a good thing. But yeah, no, it's kind of like they found the majority of the cast found their level here, and they were so comfortable with it. Yes. it really does show.
Yeah, it does. I've had a fucking blast watching it, and we haven't even talked about the theme tune yet either.
No,
Which
I don't
look,
really want to talk about it. I'll just put it on.
yeah, I
We'll
mean,
just,
look, it's not like one of those fucking stone cold bangers like Jace where you're just like, yeah, fuck yeah, like it's quite, like I say, it's quite baroque, it's plinky
but
plonky,
it's
but
quirky, isn't it?
it's quirky. It's another one that I knew every word before we'd started rewatching
No,
this
I
again.
didn't. I knew the tune and I remembered bits of it, but I didn't remember all of it.
Oh, I used to have it on an LP on a like TV. In fact, at cleaning Dad's house out again, I found this LP with a load of. It's got like Heidi High, Rentaghost, like, and I used to have Rentaghost on this LP, so I knew it quite well anyway because I would listen to it, which probably tells you something about how I ended up being the person I am. In that I've already said it scared me slightly, and still as a child, I'd be like, I'll fucking listen to this. Just like when we were doing Centurions, I tell you I was fucking terrified of Ace McLeod, but still I would watch Centurions because I'm a fucking idiot. But yeah, I had it and I would listen to it, and it's just again, it's infectious. There's something about it. It lets you know exactly the tone of the show. You like it's weird because it's that kind of brothing and it's quite spooky. It's also a little bit silly, you know, when the lyrics are a little bit silly, and it's like I feel like it lets you know the tone. Sadly, again, the show doesn't quite nail that. Like, how good could this show be if it was that kind of spooky, funny vibe?
Yeah.
I think it would be amazing. But I guess that would be a different show. They didn't go for that. They went for just off the wall, silly. But nevertheless, that theme tune does conjure that up. It gets that slightly creepy vibe. There's something quite sort of ghostly about it, but it's very funny. And it's very fucking catchy. I'm going to be fucking singing it for weeks now because I've watched it. So I've been fucking walking around the house singing it all day today. Once it's in there, it's in there.
Yeah, it's a proper earworm.
It really is. It really is. And you get it at the front and the back as well. There's no different song at the back. So you're hearing it twice a fucking episode. It's up there. I don't think it'll ever reach like the top 10 of our theme tunes, but it's definitely up there.
Yeah, I'd say you're right. And it's, I mean, I've gone looking for it today for editing onto the credits of the episode and stuff, and I just pick up bits of it, and then some of the ones I saw on YouTube, the quality wasn't great, the capture wasn't great. So you had that like white noise you got off tapes.
Yeah.
A lot of that over, a lot of the stuff static on the screen and shit as well. But again, that to me kind of speaks to the nostalgia of it.
Yeah, definitely. That's what you want from it. Like I said, I used to have an LP recording, so I'm used to hearing the pops and the cracks and and even like the videos I've watched, they've got fucking tracking lines going across them, the VHS tapes, and I'm like, that's helped. That has helped. I'll be honest, because this really is a big nostalgia trip for me. This one, I mean, that's helped me.
Yeah, I mean that was the same for me. I mean, I remember when we were kids. I say we used to tape shit off the TV all the time, and be it films or like episodes of stuff. And we had just a cabinet full of like store bought VHSs that we'd recorded shit onto. I had very few pre-recorded, but we had everything, all the films we wanted. We had because we just taped them off the TV. But yeah, looking back, and I remember I had this Super Ted tape, and that was the same. The tracking was all to fuck on it. I don't know what it was, but for whatever reason, you could have your tracking set for any other tape, and it would be more or less fine. You have to twiddle a knob a little bit just to get it right. Fucking this one, you'd be right up the far end with it, just trying to get it watchable.
Yeah,
I don't know what it was with that tape. Presumably, it was fucked. But that's what this reminded me of. Again, I put on the first one I put on was I think it was a season 2 or 3 one, and all across the opening 2 minutes it was just fucking wavy white lines and a bit of white noise and a bit of static, and just where you get the sort of the used to get when you used to record an audio cassette, if you record your voice, you get that's a very hissy background noise.
Yeah, just the white noise.
Even having shit like that on there was just you're right, it just takes you back straight away.
Imagine like just listening to you talking about tracking. Then I mentioned the tracking lines, but listen to you talk about the process of tracking there, and like imagine trying to explain to kids today that like you'd put a film in and not on a fucking DVD, you'd put a tape in, and sometimes it would play, but it would look like shit, and you had to fucking tune it in on a little knob.
Yeah.
Just to get the picture clear, and even then, about halfway through, it'd probably start drifting again, and you start getting spots coming up in your picture, and it might start rolling. So you tune it. Can you imagine explaining that to like teenagers today?
I have enough trouble with number 1 and number 2 when you have to wait for a DVD to load, which takes like fucking seconds.
Seconds, yeah.
And well, why isn't it playing? It's like, because they hasn't started reading the disc yet. Well, what's have to read the disc for? Because fucking Netflix plays straight away. So, well, yeah, it does. It's like fucking hell, you know. So I mean, having to explain DVDs is bad enough.
Yeah,
trying to explain a VHS whereby you've got to track it, you've got to rewind the cunt because nobody did it when they watched it the time before.
Yep, and you'd wait fucking like a lot. Again, I keep saying about this. It's just because we're on a nostalgia trip, I guess. But all this old shit I found Super 8 cassette tapes.
Fucking hell.
And like I'm in the process of digitizing them, right? Do you know how long it takes to rewind a fucking 60-minute tape?
I know.
It takes ages. I've forgotten how long it took because I figured like rewinding super quick. No, is it bollocks?
It's practically
it takes
fucking
like
real
5,
time,
6 minutes.
I'm sure there was. Do you remember I think we bought it when we were doing Scab. We bought a projector for 8mm film.
Yes, yeah.
I'm sure
I still have it somewhere.
I'm sure because we had a reel of film for that, and I'm fairly sure it was one of my parents' old ones, and I'm sure it fucking rewound in real time. It was that bad.
Mean, quite possibly with that, but like with cassettes, like with video cassette, it takes like 5-6 minutes to rewind an hour's worth. So what's that? It's probably about 5 times speed then, isn't it? 4 or 5 times speed. No, more than that. But anyway, it takes fucking ages, is what I'm saying. So like a 2-hour film take you fucking forever.
The thing is, do you remember when they introduced long play cassettes?
Yeah.
And my uncle used to have Sky and we didn't, so he used to record like WrestleMania and shit for us. But he just set it at midnight and let the tape run to the end.
Yeah.
So the time we got to the end, he was 8 hours in because he put an hour tape to make sure he got it all. And he'd never fucking rewind it for us. He'd just give it to us. And so he'd sit there for the first 45 minutes rewinding the cunt.
Yeah, yeah. Fucking hell. Totally off topic again. How the fuck we got onto rewinding videotapes?
I don't know.
We're really bad at the moment. Like the last 2 or 3 episodes of every fucking show we've done, we started. I think it's just because I'm tired, I think. So I just go down all these weird fucking tangents. But yeah, I can't imagine a kid today having to actually operate a VHS. No. Like they just wouldn't fucking. When we were talking about flippers with DVDs a couple of weeks ago, like that'd probably blow their mind enough. Like, what do you mean you got to turn it over?
Yeah.
How does that work? But to actually.
When you had like the Lord of the Rings DVDs when the film was in 2 parts on 2 discs. When are we going to change the disc? When are we going to get up?
Well, like even go back to when fucking things like Titanic came out on VHS and they came on 2 fucking VHS tapes.
Yeah, fucking hell.
Now that was really fucking annoying because you'd watch the first one and if some cunt hadn't rewound the second one, you'd have to stop halfway through and rewind that before you could watch the rest of the film.
Yeah, no, we never had that, but I'm fairly sure we rented it at some point. And it was on a single tape, but it was again, it hadn't been around. That's fucking 3 hours and change, isn't it?
Something like that. First time I ever saw it in the cinema that had an intermission. It stopped halfway through, and I was like, is it broke? What the fuck? What am I meant to do here? What the fuck is this? Again, like explaining that to kids. Like obviously the generation before us, that was a common thing. You'd have intermission, go and have a fag, get some food, have a piss, whatever, come back in. For me, I was like, what the fuck is this? Where's the rest of the film?
I can't remember. I think it was the second Lord of the Rings film I saw. It was the first time I had an intermission in it.
Can you imagine having an intermission? Again, today now, an intermission, it just wouldn't happen.
No.
Like, if you want to go for a piss, you miss 5 minutes of the film. Tough shit.
I remember watching, I think it was Endgame, and I'd been reading about it, but trying to avoid spoilers, and it said, if you need to go for a piss, this is the point to do. When this comes on screen, you've got 2 minutes and change to go for a piss and come back before you miss anything, and that's the sort of the fleshiest part of the film, because that's the filler bit. That 2 minutes in the middle of 3.5 fucking hours. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, can you imagine putting and it would be reasonable to put an intermission in.
Yeah.
No film's 3.5. That's a long time to hold your bladder.
Find a good place to stop. 5-minute intermission. Everybody comes. Yeah. I guess it was difficult for cinemas to control who was coming back in because you'd have to pay somebody to take tickets again, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so.
I don't know. Anyway, moral of this story, do like I do. Take a piss when the orange advert's on. Well, not the orange advert now, whatever it is now, fucking Kevin Bacon, Meerkat movies, whatever the hell it's going to be when cinemas come back. because
they come back,
nobody's advertising in that fucking shit for a while. Let me tell you, there ain't no money going into them. No. So who fucking knows? Anyway, Rentaghost.
I think we're pretty much done with Rentaghost, aren't we? On to nostalgia now.
Yeah, I think it. Yeah, it. Now and again, we do have shows that we try, like we really try devil, and you know, we've gone an hour a change, and I think we've talked in relative depth about Rentaghost as well. But you know, we have some shows which are so bad that we just pull them to pieces, and we don't really get the nostalgia trip from it. See your biker mices and shit like that. Yeah. But then, you know, now and again we get these shows where it's just such a great big warm nostalgia hug that you just kind of, it does just lead you down that garden path, doesn't it? Do you remember this? And do you remember this? And do you remember this? And that is the power of nostalgia there. And that for me was what this was this week. You know, in a fucking world that's going to shit, and let's be fair, it is. 2020 is a fucking car fire. Like in a world that's going to shit, I'm just really, really fucking glad that Rentaghost exists, and it was out there for me this week to just watch, because it's lovely. It's thoroughly lovely.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of the same. I mean, I said I've not had the year you've had. And so no, I say with all sincerity, I'm glad of that, and obviously not wishing that on anybody, but I'm glad I haven't to go through that. But it's been a shitter of a year, and you think, well, okay, well, at some point you just need a little pick me up. And I mean, I found out yesterday morning that I've been within 4 fucking yards of somebody who's got coronavirus, so I've got to self-isolate for 2 weeks. And so on the back of that, I'm thinking, right, that's ruined the next fortnight of my life. And I thought, oh, okay, I've got to watch Rentaghost today. And within about 5 minutes, I'd forgotten about that. I'd forgotten about the fact that I literally cannot do fuck all for the next 2 weeks, because I was just like, oh yeah, I remember this. I quite like this. And yeah, it's a good time. And so even though not remembering the specifics of those first couple of seasons that I started watching yesterday, there was enough in it that I did remember. And then coming into the later ones, going, I've seen that one before. I remember that one, and being able to hark back and look in that sort of humor and that sort of And it's some of it is not fucking funny, but it was stuff we'd have found funny as kids, and you just somewhere in the back of your brain it just sort of tickles you a little bit, and just puts you back in that mindset, back in that place where you can go, oh yeah, I remember that.
And that's the difference, isn't it? Like we were talking about shows like Michelangelo and stuff, which is cringeworthy because I never really liked them as kids. I never found it funny as a kid. But this I did, and I know that I would have found a lot of this stuff hilarious as a kid. Yeah. And it is stupid now when you watch it as an adult and go, oh, what the fuck, seriously?
Yeah.
But as a kid, you found it funny. You know, the type of shit that Claypole does as a kid, you just be like, yeah, he's funny. I like him. He's a funny jester man who's a little bit scary because of his outfit, but I'm a fucking idiot. So, like, it is, yeah. And it does, you just give it that pass, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I mean, that's definitely for me. And I didn't remember as much of the show as I remember. When I came back to it, I was like, hang on, it was just the right fucking thing. Can't be more than one Rentaghost, surely. And then as I sort of carried on watching, I started to recognize people, and so you do pick out that style, and so some of the tropes they used, and you do stuff to get back into it. And yeah, you're right. It's just a very nice, slightly silly, slightly crude if you pick it out, and so your kids aren't going to pick it up, your adults will. It's just an easy half hour. No, you're
Very
not
easy.
No, you're not sitting there thinking, "Fuck, what time's this going to finish? So I've got to do whatever." Or what happened there? You can just sit there and let it wash over you, and you will catch enough of it. You'll know what's going on in the story because as long as you watch the first scene, you're fine. The rest of it's kind of just shenanigans. But it's not heavy. It's not serious. No, the temptation could have been to make these ghost stories really fucking really intense and try and make there's no threat, there's no danger. It's just fucking hijinks for half an hour, and I think that's the only way it would work.
Yeah, the world needs more Rentaghost in it. I think that's my takeaway from this.
That's my takeaway from 2020.
Yeah, like honestly, this is the perfect show for 2020, and I'm not saying that lightly. Like I've had a 2020, believe me, and this is just lovely. It's such a thoroughly nice distraction. There is it's from a time before we had fucking coronavirus and before everybody hated everyone else. And no, everybody did still hate everyone else. We were just a lot less public about it.
Yeah, we're not nicer about it.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't have the fucking internet, so But it's good natured. It's innocent, or relatively so anyway, and it's just silly, kooky, imaginative fun, and I fucking love that. And like I said earlier on, it genuinely makes me sad to think that probably after our generation, this is just going to die a death. That's quite sad.
Yeah.
That really is. I feel like the world needs more of this. So somebody dig out that fucking reboot idea, because I'd be up for it, definitely.
Oh, fuck, I've got nothing else to do for the next fortnight.
Yeah, somebody dig that reboot idea out, and let's have some more Rentaghost, please. With Russell Brand, I'm fully behind that casting. Like, don't worry, I'm fully behind that. That's a good idea. Someone should definitely do it.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, as always, we'd love to hear your thoughts on this one. I mean, we tend not to get the vitriol we expect when we rip things apart, but when we say nice things about stuff, also, we tend to get better feedback as well. So yeah, we'd love to know what people think of this. On Twitter at SMPDpod, on Facebook with the Double Down Podcast Network. You can go to our website ddpodcast.net, where you can pick up some of our previous episodes as well and some of our other shows. Wherever you get your podcasts from, be it iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, Amazon Music, like, subscribe, share, leave us a comment. We'll get back to you as best we can. But until next time,
see you later.
At your party, be a smarty and hire Rentaghost. If you want a fright, climb the spooky heights with Rentaghost. You can let our spirits move you, and for fun play Ghostman's Knock. Because we aim to shock, we hope your knees will lock. That's Rentaghost. Let me say we're most horrific, simple ghosts, not scientific, merely supernatural buoys of the day. Heavy footsteps in your attic means a spectre telepathic is descending just to spirit you away. Hey! We are extraordinary fellas here at Rentaghost. To be another Eureka, come to Rentaghost. For a biography with ghost writers, and not forgetting a ghost script. An apparition quick from deep inside a crypt. Ring Rentaghost. An apparition quick from deep inside a crypt. Ring Rentaghost.